Vanguard for being here today for our Lunch and Learn series, Careers in Personal Finance with Vanguard. We have Eric Frye with us. He is a graduate of Penn State in 2016 with a BS in finance, and he joined Vanguard in the same year into the Acceleration into Financial Professional program, the AFP program. Since then, he has spent time leading teams in enterprise financial services, the institutional investor group, and now in the office of the general counsel. His teams are responsible for managing Vanguard's regulatory fund documents with the SEC, like fund prospectus. And Eric sits on Vanguard's skills-based volunteering leadership team and enjoys spending time with his little brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Outside of work, he likes to take advantage of the outdoors, maybe not right now since it's so cold, but trying new things and spending time with his family, friends, and dog. So we also have John Lord. He's a senior sales associate. He partners with financial advisors to drive investor outcomes as a senior sales associate. He's recently launched from the Emerging Leader Development Program, the ELDP, where he served as an investment analyst, business analyst, product owner, team leader, and a broker in 4 rotations across Vanguard's enterprise. Prior to joining Vanguard, John studied finance, political science, and real estate at Penn State and served as Interfraternity Council president, co-founded a local community service organization, and led fundraising efforts for his Thon organization. Outside of work, John is a CFA Level 2 candidate and enjoys weightlifting, surfing, and spending time with friends and family. And last but not least, we have Anthony Mano. He supports financial advisors who partner with Vanguard through portfolio analytics to help them best achieve their clients' goals. Anthony has external experience shadowing a financial advisor intern at Edward Jones and joined PA&C from the Emerging Leader Development Program, where he served as an investment analyst in the institutional business and portfolio review department. Anthony holds a BS in economics and finance degree and an MS in finance degree, both from the University of Delaware. Outside of work, Anthony enjoys ice hockey, music, and spending time with family. So welcome to all 3 of you. Thank you again for joining us. And I will go ahead and turn the reins over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. I'm going to start sharing my screen. We popped a question in the chat, and I've gotten some fun answers. What their favorite fall drink is. What's your favorite fall drink, Stacy?
Let's see. My favorite fall drink, fall though, I do love a good Moscow Mule, and you can kind of mix that up in with like some cider, some apple cider. I'm sorry, I went alcoholic.
No shade there. We enjoy. We support that. We support that for sure. I think everyone else. I may have started it because I said hot chocolate, and so they maybe kept it more G rated. But as long as folks are above age, we support that as well. This afternoon, I'm going to be going all the Thursdays here at Vanguard as we prepare for our full-time return to the office. Well, hybrid return to the office starting in January. Most people will be returning 3 out of the 5 days. They bring in a brewery and a caterer, and we have a big party Thursday afternoon. So I'm looking forward to that this afternoon. Maybe they'll have some Moscow Mules for us. All right, well, with that, I just want to make sure you all are able to see my screen, the presentation. All right. Well, we already kind of kicked off a little bit talking about the 3 of us. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Anthony to talk a little bit about why Vanguard and what is Vanguard for those of you that might not be familiar.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Eric. So just a little bit of background about, I guess, who we are, what we do. So Vanguard is one of the largest asset managers in the country. I believe we are currently number 2, second only to BlackRock, but gaining traction there. So it's going to be a close race. We are unique, though, that we are client owned. So if I were to just simplify Vanguard into who we are, what we do, I think it comes down to clients first, crew second, who are our people here, and then 3, community. So those are sort of the 3 pillars of which we sort of pride ourselves on of how we serve the community. And we'll dive into a little bit this later, but I think that's, for a lot of companies, that can be some fluff about what's our mission, what's our culture, but I think it's pretty evident in the day-to-day decisions that we see in our meetings and our drive on all of our initiatives that we do every day. John, do you want to talk a little bit about our unique structure, maybe how that separates us from the rest of the industry?
John, we can't hear you. I know we've had a little audio issues with.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
Now, awesome, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about Vanguard's mission. Anthony hinted at this and gave a nice line up to basically like a lot of other companies serve and report back to their shareholders, so people that own the company, whether it's privately held or publicly traded. What's unique about Vanguard is the shareholders of our company are the owners of our mutual fund. So there isn't a conflict of interest in who we serve. We serve investors, which is unique and really allows us to be differentiated regardless of what happens. And it's our structure, but it's also our mission. So our mission is to take a stand for all investors, to treat them fairly, and to give them the best chance for investment success. And really what drove me to Vanguard and kind of what kept me like coming back full time after my internship was the fact that it's not just a mission, it's something written on the wall, something that people say, but it's something that people do every single day. Every decision that's made, from senior leaders to entry-level crew, every decision is in the best interest of our shareholders because of how we're designed and how we think. So that really resonates with me. I don't know about everyone else, but I feel solace that I don't have to leave my morals at the door when I work at Vanguard. So
Yeah.
I've been on my pedestal about Vanguard and our mission enough. Eric, do you want to talk about our crew?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add to you, like when I was going through my job selection coming out of college, I didn't think I was going to get a job. So I applied to 186 jobs. And I think that's a little bit overkill. I found that out pretty quick. But I worked at GE Transportation for 7 months as a co-op. And as much as train locomotives were interesting, it was hard for me to be interested in to come to work every day and to work on that. And so like what you were talking about, John, that really helped me stay at the company is because I do care about, the people that we serve and the people that we work with. And our crew in particular is another big reason why I enjoy being able to stay here. I haven't met a person at Vanguard that I don't like yet. I've worked in 3 different divisions. I've been able to work and manage, hundreds of people. And what's cool is since we're backed by that mission, we all have commonality in what we're driving after. Something maybe we'll talk a little bit about is our inclusion at Vanguard. We have what we're called crew resource groups. They're groups for different crew populations as well as allies to kind of connect, learn, share experiences, and really create a network so that way we can grow together as a company. And so we have some that are focused on women in leadership, some that are focused on the Black Professional Network, or for our LGBTQIA plus crew, the Open, or OLA for Hispanic Latino, as well as LEAP for our Asian professionals. And most recently, I was able to attend, it was Spanish Heritage Month over the last month or so, and I was able to attend an event that OLA put on where they really spoke from a personal perspective on what it meant to be an immigrant into this country. And it was just interesting for me. I had come from 4 or 5 meetings. We were talking about business and we were talking with the SEC and all these various things. Then I got to spend about 45 minutes with some friends that I hadn't met before, but just got to learn and talk about the immigrant experience and how that impacts their life. And so it's just nice, even as I'm white myself, but to be able that our work encourages those conversations to have and supports us through learning. Anthony or John, have you guys had an opportunity to attend any events hosted by these different organizations before?
Yeah, I can hop in. Or Anthony, do you wanna? I can hop in. I actually attended an open event in person back in 2019. The Out Professional Engagement Network, I believe, is what it's called, and it's really cool because for me as a straight guy, to go in and be able to understand and get real with people that have different experiences than I do, and to learn their perspective is invaluable. I think what's cool is that Vanguard encourages that. At the time, I asked my manager, I said, hey, like, I'm interested in going to this open event. It's an allyship session where I'll learn about how to be more inclusive and a better ally. My manager looked at me, didn't even think about it, said, go, 100% go. So I think the fact that it's supported, encouraged, and desired from people at all levels to be inclusive and learn more about other people and their perspectives, I think is just another great mark for Vanguard. Anthony, do you have anything?
Yeah, great stories both. I think for me, the Wills events are always ones that resonate with myself. I think just like personal bias, I grew up in a household where very driven mother, sister, cousins, and it's just really cool to see how I think our angle with all these events is actually just really strong and positive as well. So I don't know if this struck anybody else, but I remember one of my first roles at Vanguard. I was in a meeting. It was 5 of us. I was the only male, and everyone else was female, and like positions of very high, I guess, organizational leadership. And it's funny because it struck me and just thought, like, this is actually the first time I've been in a room of all female leaders. And so I think all these type of events, it's great because it's not only personally, I think, very endearing and just from my personal beliefs, but I think it's also just cool to see how we're actually driving change and how that actually, echoes into the organization. It's not just an event for the sake of putting a title on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Anthony. And it made me think, I think all of my managers, except for one that I had for maybe 3 months, have all been women. And they've all been great. I think the statistic, if I'm trying to pull it from my memory, I was in a meeting a few months ago where I think 46% of our leaders are women. If I remember that statistic right, 46 in that category. Give me 5% either way. And so definitely a large organization. Any questions that you guys have that you want to pose in the chat, or feel free to take yourself off mute and pose to us, either about Vanguard, about what it means to work here, what that looks like, before we kind of hop into what are some of those opportunities that we have, and then give you an overview of personal finance and what are some topics within that category. I'll go ahead and pause for a few seconds.
Yeah. We have a small and intimate group here, so
yeah,
no
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's right. So wait, while we're filibustering to see if anyone asks a question, so I'm calling in from Malvern, Pennsylvania. I'm actually in the office today. So right now, during this period of time, it's optional to come in to work. You have to be fully vaccinated. One of the benefits is they're giving us free lunch and free snacks and free pastries in the morning. It's kind of fun, kind of cool. But I live and work here in Malvern. Where are you coming in from, John? Where do you work? Or where are you living? And then Anthony, the same to you.
Yeah, I'm calling in from Newtown Square down in Delaware County, so not too far from Malvern. A nice 3-hour drive to Penn State, but I'd rather be at in-state college, that's for sure.
And Anthony, you're from the city, right? You live in the city.
That's a fantastic answer, John. Yeah, Eric. So I'm currently in Philadelphia Grad Hospital right now. But I guess also as a quick plug on like our work-life balance. Like this summer, I actually worked from Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, kind of on the run. And I actually did work, I swear. Like manager's not on the line, but
cool. I did a similar thing. I worked so I was born and raised out in Seattle. So I worked out in Seattle for probably 8 months. I worked from Hawaii for about 8 weeks. I worked from Palm Springs for about 6 weeks. I worked from Idaho on a lake for about 2 months. So I'm with you, Anthony, and kind of taking advantage of this work-life balance and remote work. I will tell you though, the 6-hour time difference in Hawaii just about killed me, as an 8 a.m. meeting on the East Coast is in fact 2 a.m. in Hawaii. But I wouldn't take it up because I was able to be in Hawaii and I was done by 11 every day and then got to go out and enjoy and catch a little surf or try to. It looks like we didn't get any questions, so I'll go ahead and give a brief overview of the opportunities, the student programs that we have here at Vanguard. I'm going to go ahead and pull them all up. These are all, if you go to vanguardjobs.com or the Nittany Lion Career Network. All available jobs will be posted there. But I'm just going to give a brief overview. So for freshmen as well as sophomores, we have the Explore program. We've kind of taken it a little bit different. You used to actually come here for a day or two. This is now a 2-day, part-day virtual experience. We're able to actually see what it's like to be here on campus, meet with some different folks of various divisions. As sophomores, this is a new program as of last year. It's our North Star program. It's designed as a 1-week intensive for those that have been historically underrepresented in the financial community. So if you fall into one of those categories, definitely take advantage of it. We always make sure it lines up with one of your breaks. There's the college to corporate internship, which can take place the summer of your sophomore going into junior year or your junior going into senior year. Highly, highly competitive, but very, very great experience. I think, Anthony, you went through a Vanguard intern, is that right? Or was that John that did?
Both of us.
Was
actually.
it you, Anthony?
Yeah.
Both of you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I did the
You want to talk about
finance
that?
and accounting. Yeah,
Okay.
I could touch on it quick, and then John, if you want to hop in within the business track as well. So full transparency. So I come back from like the finance and econ days. I was a little bit of the heads down numbers world, so like I will admit a little nerdy in that sense, but it was cool just to see how all of our products, like our mutual funds, like the baskets of investments are made, how we price them, and what goes on behind the scenes. It's all the math and all the data kind of behind the curtains, which was great. I think the coolest part though too, Eric, was just being able to see how vast Vanguard really is. Like the huge company, and honestly, I can think of very few things in financial services that we don't touch in some extent. So it's a great experience. John, I don't know if you want to touch on business or marketing at all. That's less numbers and maybe more fun than mine.
Yeah, so I came into the internship experience with a different idea of what I was going to do. I didn't have any idea. I studied finance, political science, and real estate at Penn State, but really was not sure what a full-time job even could be. So what brought me to Vanguard and what interested me was the fact that it's rotational. Like Anthony mentioned, there are a ton of different opportunities and jobs you could have. So I kind of put my name out there, got the internship, and then the internship manager said, "Hey, how does retail marketing sound to you?" I was like, "Oh, like, okay, like sure, I'll go for it." The only experience I have is like my marketing 302 class that I took in the fall before. But I went and I had a great time. Throughout the internship, you're able to see, like Anthony mentioned, how important data is, how multifaceted our entire enterprise is. And really what struck me and what I've seen in the Emerging Leader Development Program is that there's a place for anyone and everyone at Vanguard, depending on what your interests are. If your interests are more on the data, the heads down work, or the interpersonal client interactions, or the strategy, there are a number of different functions that we have. So I think what's cool about Vanguard is you're given the opportunity to find what drives you, what you want to do, and then given the agency to go and pursue that. So I would say if you don't know what you want to do when you grow up, which was me a couple of years ago, Vanguard's a great place to figure that out while helping to drive impact to end investors.
I think that's a good precision. And when I was looking at folks' responses to the question of what their major was, we have econ majors and other majors as well. I've hired, people over the last 5 years, dozens and dozens of different folks. I think only 4 or 5 of them had a finance major or even knew what a stock or bond was in an in-depth way before they came onto the team. We hire a lot of people that I've hired psychology majors, econ majors, history majors. I hired a biologist. And I'll tell you that we talked about back in the crew how we have these crew resource groups that we value inclusion, we value diversity, but diversity is also deeper than just our skin color or our sexual orientation. It's also the way that we approach and think about problems and the knowledge that we bring with us. And whenever I look to build a team, I always want to build a team of someone that doesn't think the same way that I do. That's going to challenge me. That's going to be able to approach approach a problem from a different angle. And so, to speak to that, I guess one thing I have to say anytime I meet with my friends at Penn State is, regardless if you get an internship at Vanguard, the best thing that you can do after the summer, after your sophomore year and junior year, is to secure an internship, even if it's not, with some really snazzy company or an unrecognizable name. My first internship was with my uncle's lavender company after my freshman year of college. I pulled weeds 80% of the time, and then 10% of the time, he yelled at me, and then the other 10% of the time, I tried to work on some marketing things. Just getting those experiences on your resume then propels you to get more and more competitive internships as you go through, and then land a role in which you'll be happy with. So just a plug in general for looking to take advantage of those summers. To be creative. But for those of you that are going to be looking for it to come to us full time, we have a lot of different entry points. One of, I think, where we hire the most is through our client facing roles, those that actually get to talk on the phones with our clients days in, day out. You don't have to be a finance major to do that. You can have any background. We actually spend the first 2 to 3 months of the time that you're with us sitting in a classroom, training you, having you do practice phone calls, answering different questions, really building up your acumen. We also hire a lot in the IT space with developers. I don't think I saw any developers on the line, so I'll kind of skip through. We also have a few leadership development programs. Both Anthony and John went through the Emerging Leader Development Program. I myself went through the Acceleration in the Financial Professionals Program. There are definitely interesting programs of a place to spot. They only do hire, about 10 to 20 people per program. So sometimes it's a little bit trickier to get, your name at the top of the hat or to get your, resume on the top of the list. But they also do hire internally. So if you do come into the space through the client-facing role and you want to get into one of these emerging leader programs or a finance development program or some of the other programs that we have, you're able to apply once you've been here for a year. Some other ones that we have are Fund Financial Services, which is the first team that I managed, was over there. So pretty cool opportunity. You don't have to have finance experience there either. You just have to be able to think critically and solve problems. And then our internal audit group as well. Again, all of those are on vanguardjobs.com as well as Nittany Lion Career Network. I think if our friends from HR were here, they would say apply early, as they fill up really fast. And so we've already filled up for the fall, I think, with a couple of our internships and our emerging leadership program. We are still hiring in those client-facing roles and maybe a couple other of our specialty programs. So definitely take a look, apply early, apply often. Maybe don't do like me and apply to 100 plus roles, but do take the time to apply, whether at Vanguard or somewhere else. So I've been talking quite a bit, but now we're going to go ahead and move on and move over to personal finance at Vanguard. And go ahead.
We got a question in the chat. Do we want to pause for a second and answer that?
Yeah, let's do that. I can't see it. You want to read it out loud?
Yeah, I'll read it out. And then if you want to take a stab at it, I'm sure myself and Anthony
sure
roundabout. So Casey asked, what do you think from college most prepared you for a career at Vanguard? Good question.
Great question. What prepared me the most? I would say it was my group projects, where you had to collaborate with others. I would say those challenging situations, dealing with people that were more motivated and maybe less motivated than others, having to learn those soft skills really set me up for success to be able to come into the corporate world where you're not just with this person 1 hour a day or 1 hour a day twice a week or whatever it is. You're sitting with your team 8 hours a day. And how do you make a team work out of very diverse people with different perspectives and backgrounds? So I would say group projects were huge for me. How about the two of you?
Anthony, you want to hop in?
Yeah, I could hop in here. Great point, Eric. I think for me, and also full transparency, I don't know if it was shared, but I went to University of Delaware, so like I'm the black sheep in this group. Another state school, love that. Yeah. So listen, my experience is gonna be different. I hail from the land where if business majors were not accounting major with a 4.0 applying to accounting firms and JP Morgan, they don't want anything to do with you. That's where I come from. So I'm biased, but That being said, as much as like, yeah, I study kind of finance, like I'm very numbers heavy, whatever. I think far and away, Casey, like what helped me most was my ability to just figure it out. Like very rarely do I come to a role with a skill from a prior role or like class where I'm like, oh, I know how to do this particular like model in Excel. Like that doesn't happen. It's the fact that I like our roles has taught us to just be able to hit the ground running and come up to speed and be able to self-provision, ask the right questions, be resourceful, and ultimately just how to be intellectually curious. I think that far and away has been the most successful chapter for myself, as I continue to fumble through all my questions throughout the year with my team. But that's what I would say for myself. How about you, John?
I like that.
Yeah, I think, and this is nothing new, Eric and Anthony touched on both of it, but for me, it's extracurricular activities. I think you learn a lot in the classroom, but for me, I learn the most outside of the classroom through organizations, similar group projects, like time where you're solving for something ambiguous that you don't know the answer to, but you have to work with people. You're going to have to work with people for the rest of your life. So you should get practice in that in a safe setting when you're still in college. I think that paid dividends for me when it came time to work with people, corral ideas, gain input from everyone, bring out the best in other people. And it's a fun way to give back. I know at Penn State there are a ton of different student organizations, so you could be able to find where yours is, and just don't be afraid to put your hand up and say, yeah, I'll try this, or I'll try to help out that way, because you never know where it might lead you. But what you should know is that it'll help you develop and grow and learn as a person.
I'm with you. I agree. Great question. Is there any other questions I can't see that someone else is able to see? If not, we'll go ahead and head over to personal.
Yeah, that was it for the Q&A box and the chat
okay.
is clear. So
perfect. Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about personal finance. John, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I can jump in here. I think what's really cool about Vanguard is that it's not something that's abstract in the sense of like, we're building pieces to a part. Like what we're doing is we're helping to provide people safety and security and the ability to reach their goals. And goals in the sense of like life goals. So I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to buy a house, I want to retire at some age. Personal finance and investments is a fantastic way to reach those goals. So kind of depending on what those goals are, what you're trying to achieve, there are a number of ways to get there. What Vanguard does is Vanguard supplies two things to help people get there. So investment products, so a mutual fund, ETF, Anthony I think is going to talk about that in a second, but also advice. So what's the best way to get there? Should we think about a strategy in a different way? But at its core, to reach any goal, the first thing you need to do is define that goal. I can maybe share a personal financial goal for me, and then if anyone wants to write in the chat, then feel free to as a way to share kind of what you're maybe saving towards or investing for. But I know in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to want to buy a house. So I started stashing away some money and investing it in a target retirement fund for when that day does come. Part of the equation too is risk and reward. So when you're investing, you are taking on risk. It's not like putting money into a bank where you're guaranteed that it won't go down. It could very well go down. But with that risk, you also take on and accept the chance for a reward. So outsized performance, your money growing over time. I'll leave you with a quote, and I'm actually not sure if this is actually attributed to him, but Albert Einstein said the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. And what compound interest is your money growing and growing and growing because it's growing on itself. So there are a number of really cool different calculations, graphs out there. But if you have a moment, just Google compound interest in Google Images, and you can see the importance of long-term investing, which is what Vanguard believes in. I'll maybe pause here and see if there are any questions on personal finance, broadly speaking, or if anyone wants to dive deeper or move on to other things. Feel free to jump in or write something in the chat.
For those that might be unfamiliar, I mean, a stock, I'm kind of playing a little bit silly here, but, I remember a couple months ago when everyone was talking about GameStop and how that was the hot thing. And I have never, everyone and their uncle was calling me to say, hey, Eric, I know you work at Vanguard. Should I be buying GameStop? I've heard about it's going up. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the heck was going on? And should people be buying GameStop and the next thing when it comes up online?
Yeah, I can answer that. Well, GameStop, to go back, a stock is an ownership stake in a company. So if a company does well and you own their stock, you're an owner of the company and that you do well. The price of the stock can go up or the stock can pay dividends. So, hey, thanks for owning us. Here's a little bit of cash that we have left over. So there are a number of ways to gain from that. GameStop is one stock in particular that drew a lot of interest because of the strong investment community that really just rallied around it and caused prices to go up. If you remember one thing from the GameStop incident is that humans drive stock prices. And when a number of humans decide that a stock price should go up, the stock price goes up. So always remember that investing is inherently human and behavioral. So what's cool about Vanguard is we try to understand and manage the human aspect of investing. So our founder, John Bogle, would often say, hey, set it and forget it. Invest in a stock, invest in a mutual fund, invest in an ETF, and then forget about it for 30 years. You'll come back, check your account balance, and be blown away by how much this grows to. We have a question in the chat from Nathan, and he says, and maybe I'll pass this one over to Anthony. I've heard that compounding interest, the best time to start investing was yesterday. What's everyone's opinion on the best time to start investing our money? Anthony, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll start off with, as always, with our Vanguard response. This is not considered advice, right? Like super legal. I know Eric is going to catch me for that one. So obviously everyone's situation is different, but I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nathan. So compounding interest, time is your best friend, right? This is actually, so speaking on John's comment earlier about the target retirement funds, I used to work in an institutional space, and it's surprising because even like people who are like adults or like the most sophisticated people seem to forget this simple lesson, but we can't out invest a savings problem. So yes, like if people are able to pay their bills, take care of their expenses, we can always talk about that triage of like wants in life versus needs, like shelter, food, water. Presuming you have those covered and like the lifestyle that you want to live, earlier is definitely better, because people forget that it's not about pushing the money into like the most like home run, like lotteries, like investments. Like building wealth and building an investment is a really slow, painful process. People don't like to hear that though. That's going to take a long time. So I guess to formally answer though, Nathan, yeah, yesterday if possible, but just make sure that all those boxes are checked. And then once you have those goals, as John mentioned, said, once you've established those, it's set, then you kind of work your way backwards. Like, okay, I've checked all those boxes. Now we can start putting money away in different types of accounts. Eric, what do you think? What else can you build off
No,
that
I
one?
think that makes sense. I think start as soon as you can and as small, even if it's something small. I remember saving pennies and literally when I was a kid, and anytime I get a raise or I experience a promotion, I always make sure that I save a little bit of whatever that promotion was and save a little percentage of that into my savings. So I also think there's an importance of making sure that you have enough saved up in like a rainy day fund. You're not putting everything out for retirement. You're also saving some, so that way if you have some sort of occurrence, like a national pandemic happens and you have to you get trapped in New Zealand. I almost did. I was in New Zealand when this happened and almost got trapped there and would have had to pay for a really expensive flight to get back to the US. So having that safety reserves can be helpful. But I did see another question that Zach Martin asked us, which is, what do you feel is the best way to market yourself during a finance interview? And what experience is Vanguard looking for? I don't think we've covered this, Zach. So I think this is definitely a good question. And I'm just trying to scroll up to see, what's your major, Zach? Would you mind maybe putting that chat as well. Maybe I'll take to this first, since I'm a manager and I hire people quite often. Is I'm looking for someone to be their authentic self. So to be who you are, to share your personality. As far as for a technical finance interview, I would expect for someone that has a finance background and that maybe is coming in not as a client representative, but someone that's seeking maybe the acceleration of financial development program, is really able to solve and think through critical problems. So I might ask a question around, if we're experiencing a bear market, what would you advise a client to do? Or what would you do, this, that, or the other? Kind of walk through a little bit of technical questions. So I don't expect you to be a master of all things finance, but I would expect for you to be able to apply some reason with your knowledge and display that in an interview. But just going back to finance interview or not, just being yourself and allowing your personality to shine. I love it when an interviewer or an interviewee makes me laugh in an interview, or tells a joke, or shares and exposes their vulnerability, or is self-aware enough to know and admit to some error that they had made. That shows professional maturity and development. And so those are the types of things that I think can be helpful in an interview. John or Anthony, anything to add to that?
I think all the things you mentioned, Eric, are fantastic. I think what I would double down is the authenticness. Like, what makes you unique is the fact that you are you. There's no one else like you. No one else has had the same experiences. So really being able to define, all right, why are you unique and why are you aligned to this role? I think the first thing you could do is maybe look at yourself and then look at the role and match them as well as you can, almost like a Venn diagram. If you can get complete coverage, that's perfect. You make the decision for the hiring manager easy. I think the other half of the equation of that is knowing yourself and knowing the role is knowing the role really well. And there are a number of ways you can do this. So the first is obviously going online, doing your research, but also talking to people that have done the role. So if you're interested in the client relationship associate, going on LinkedIn, looking up Vanguard Penn State Client Relationship Associate, like in the search bar, and there'll be a litany of names. Shoot a message to someone. You could shoot a message to me or anyone else, but like, you pick someone's name at random. I've talked with tons of Penn State students that I'd never had known before, but because they shot me a message on LinkedIn, I said, hey, okay, yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's see how we can help each other. And I think that's a great way to understand more about the role. So once you understand what the role is, one, it gives you line of sight to say, hey, this actually sounds something I really want to do, or actually this doesn't sound like something I want to do. I'm going to save myself time and them time and not apply. So that's really important. I think the other aspect that helps people stand out in interviews is the questions you ask. And this is a function of the research and homework you do beforehand. So if you're able to ask an insightful question, something strategic, something that you know is important to the company or the role, I think that reflects really well on you. Some little bit of psychology. When you interact with someone, they're going to remember two things: the first interaction, the first impression, and then the feeling they had at the end. So was it good from the beginning, or was it good at the end? Good from the beginning, everyone knows how to introduce themselves, say, hey, my name's John, here's what I bring to the table. But at the end, a really strong way to finish is to ask really strong questions that show you've done your homework, show that you're interested, and show that you're engaged.
Absolutely.
Anthony, I'm sure I missed a lot. So, Anthony, was there anything that I missed?
Anything you learned at the University of Delaware that they're not teaching at Penn State that you can help us learn?
Yeah, just share the secret sauce, Anthony.
Those are really diligent responses, and frankly, we're just not the #1 academic institution, so to be few and far between. I think the only other thing I would add to that is just showing thought process, right? So, and Eric and John, I think your responses apply to a lot of jobs as well, just not finance. But it's not about knowing the exact answer per se, but even just talking through, here's how I would approach this situation, making that very, very clear. Like if we're having this conversation, Eric, like, speak to me like I'm 5 years old. Bring me from your logic from point A to point B and why you're doing these things based on my prior experience. Here is why I think this. And that makes it super easy to digest all of your answers. But I thought those were two fantastic backgrounds.
I love that. I think that's key. That's key. And at one interview, I got asked the question, how many windows are in New York City? And that's how I approached that question. I was said, well, based on my experience, I would need to know these things first. But if I didn't know these things and I had to go off the base of assumptions, here's how I'd go about making an estimate of, and then kind of talk them through that way. So I think that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and we'll keep it going here. John, you tell me where you want me to go in the presentation. Did I skip far too ahead, or am I at the right spot?
This looks good. We could just jump right in here. I think quickly speaking about personal finance industry, as a consumer, there are a lot of places to go. I would recommend doing your homework first and thinking about what's important to you. If that's cost, if that's ethics, if it's being morally aligned to something, and also your goals. So really understanding what's important to you. In terms of the industry has changed and changed for the better. I was at a conference earlier this week, and the leader of one of the divisions talked about how the moral arc of the investments industry is long and it bends towards the personal investor. There's an awesome quote. I probably botched it up a little bit, but basically what that means is that over time, the industry has evolved to make the propensity towards success for an individual investor higher. What that means is basically in the past, anytime you wanted to place a stock trade, one, you had to be extremely wealthy and you had to have a broker. And that broker was probably going to call you and sell you something you didn't need. That changed to the advisor model where you have an advisor, they'll help you out, but they're still going to charge you a high fee, and it's not going to be the best opportunity for you. Next, the index mutual fund came about, and this is where our founder, John Bogle, really made the revolution in the industry. Basically, it's a way to own the entire stock market. Basically, you own every company in the world, and over the long term, the data has shown that basically every company in the world has positive returns over the long term. So the thinking was, hey, let's buy the entire market, let's hold for a while, and after a long time, we're gonna have more money than when we started. Basically, I say that as now, as an investor, you have a number of different options to pursue, whether it's a robo-advisor like Betterment or Wealthfront, or you want to invest yourself and you don't know where to start. I would say Google and Investopedia helped me learn how to invest, and that was a hard and tough way. I think Vanguard does have some really nice investor education pieces on the website, so I'll do a shameless plug for that if you want to learn more. But really, personal finance industry is moving towards better opportunities for people like you and me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. I guess we'll just maybe like 2-second pause. Any questions about personal finance and the industry in general? If anybody has any thoughts before we dive into what Vanguard thinks, because obviously I'm going to give you a super biased opinion, but I'll do my best not to. All right. Proceed, Eric. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Let's do it.
Cool. So Vanguard's methodology, the end all be all, right? No, this is just one of many perspectives, as John said. And I think that's actually really great. There's so much competition that just keeps everybody sharp. Iron sharpens iron. So just in terms of personal finance at Vanguard, John alluded to a lot of this, but it's that long-term perspective. We do not harp on the 1 day, 1 month, even a year or even 3 years to us is pretty short term, because to us, we're really not that concerned about what's happening in those short-term ups and downs that Kramer's yelling about on the television. We're looking towards like the end goal, like almost like what's beyond the horizon. And by doing that, we think that it really helps us guide our perspective and our decision-making to not overreact to the short term, which might throw us off the tracks. So we're heading for that North Star in the distance at all given times, which is, I think, something that we try to preach at all levels. And I could speak, from retail through institutions, big fancy institutions, to even advisors, people who are paid oodles of money to give other people advice. Like, this is something that we have to remind people about all the time. Like, even in our group today, I have a bunch of questions I have to go answer today about why people are concerned about the last month. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's all just like getting like, hey, like this is important to acknowledge the short term, but let's not lose focus of the greater picture here. So that's something that we're going to continue to preach at all given moments. And then the other boat that we really try to stress for our investors here is diversification. So I don't know about all of you, but personally, when I hypothetically walk to Rivers Casino, I'm not putting all of my net worth on black the next roll. That sounds pretty dicey to me. So John alluded to it as well, but spreading out these bets across many different types of companies, different types of assets, different types of investments is really crucial in what we think builds long-term wealth and long-term probability to achieve your goal and success. So that's another big piece of the conversation that we have as well. It's not dropping all of our money into one stock, particularly something like GameStop, where maybe it's just a lot of news as of late. That's very short-sighted, right? And it puts a lot of risk into one concentration. So between the two of these elements, just preaching, spreading out our bets in diversification, while it doesn't ensure and guarantee anything, nothing ever is guaranteed, it just gives us a higher chance. And I think that's something that we're going to have. That's the type of conversation that we're always going to have with our investors, especially when the news headlines just keep up with constant blurbs of the end of the world or what's the next greatest thing, right? We know that there's no silver bullet. That's something that we're always going to continue to preach. So I think in terms of that, maybe we could just proceed from there unless there's any questions. I'm going to drop a couple of links in here for later as well, just for resources if anybody's curious about just to gauge their own perception of risk and how much they want to put their how they want to spread their bets into what Vanguard thinks. I'll just drop in 2 helpful resources here in a moment. But other than that, I know we're coming up on like 7 minutes of the session, give or take. Eric, I think you've talked a lot about the opportunities that we have in terms of advisors and client relations. Maybe we just throw it to the group for some Q&A and just maybe anything under the sun that they want. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that makes sense. We're going to skip this. Absolutely. I'm going to stop.